Lincoln Riley is on the hot seat. Said some people on ESPN that I happen to disagree with. All right. Now, it's a pretty key year for Lincoln Riley. All right. There are definitely some questions at some positions. Can your defense take another jump, which is something that's been a struggle in the past, but the hiring of D'Anthony Lynn as your defensive coordinator significantly bumped your defensive play last year. And is Jaden Mayava that guy at quarterback that you saw, in the bowl game against Texas in the second half where you absolutely lit it up? Is he going to be that guy that you saw at UNLV? Is this wide receiver room going to continue to be really good? Is this offensive line going to somehow piece something together? There are some serious questions here and a tough schedule for USC, but the Lincoln Riley on the hot seat stuff, like the chances of him getting fired by the end of this season, slim to none. If that was a betting man, which I definitely am. But I don't know. Actually, here's what it was, CD. The conversation was like, is there anyone in college football on a hotter seat than Brian Kelly? Which was another intelligent saying that someone on ESPN said. And then someone was like, let's look at Lincoln Riley. It's like, what? So you're saying Brian Kelly is going to get fired at the end of this year and Lincoln Riley's going to get fired at the end of this year? I mean, you never know. But I just really grinded my gears, CD, that someone gets paid money to do that professionally, and they said that.
Yeah, let's just name two of the, more polarizing coaches and clickbaity coaches in college football. Great work. Okay. Anyways, so let's talk real football here, because this is a good football team. I think we both think the talent is there. Lincoln Riley has high expectations this year. I think that's the main point. The real takeaway from that is he needs to succeed this year. Like, we can't be doing this again with USC, struggling, especially in similar ways that they have, and it's just not changing. I happen to think that this team and this culture that's going kind of setting in place, it's going to work. I do. I still have faith in Lincoln Riley. I think I think it's proof because there's buy-in behind it, because there's a really nice recruiting class coming along this next year with Lincoln Riley's name written on it. So I don't think it's a crazy, that's just all kind of more dramatized. Yeah, obviously.
Yeah. I was just going to say, the offense is his bread and butter, right? I mean, we've seen good offenses for Lincoln Riley for years now. We are seeing some really solid skill positions here, maybe a questionable offensive line. Like, how much of this offense really depends, you think, CD, on Jaden Mayava's ability to grow continuously as a passer?
It definitely does. I mean, with what Lincoln Riley asks his offenses to do, and they're quarterback friendly, but they don't make it easy, right? And you have had really talented quarterbacks come in there and light it up. And I think it's a testament that they could have looked elsewhere. They could have gone other ways, and they went out and got Mayava last year. They trusted him enough to throw him in after Miller Moss. And I wouldn't even say struggled. I just thought the team needed a change. And I was on the record as being against that. I thought Miller Moss, was doing just fine. I thought there were other things wrong with USC last year. But Mayava, he came in and he did some good things. I mean, that Texas A&M game against the depleted secondary was really impressive. You're also dealing with a depleted wide receiver room. You had a bunch of guys in the portal, a lot of other things going on there. So a full offseason with him adjusting to Big Ten play, a full offseason with him being the guy and being able to sit in and really develop with Riley, Luke Eward, right? A guy that, coming, being the offensive coordinator, getting that promotion after Henson leaves to Purdue. It's fun. I mean, behind them, I do think last year you probably felt better about the totality of your room because you have Miller Moss and Mayava, right? This year, if Mayava goes down, you're probably looking at Hassan Longstreet, right? Who's very, very good football player, but he's young, 5-star kid, from California, obviously. And then you have the former 5-star from what feels like forever ago, and Sam Heward, who has been around the block himself. So this room, I will say, Mayava, I'm looking at this schedule, and something I like to do is when I'm thinking about the potential of this team and how many wins and losses, I'm thinking, especially, it's just hard to predict which games are going to be wins, which games are going to be losses. but I want to see like how many games do they have a quarterback edge in? And I'm looking, and I love Luke Altmaier at Illinois, so I'll call that a wash. Dylan Raiola, maybe if he takes a massive jump, which we think he could, right, at Nebraska. Outside of that, I would take Maeva over every other person on this on their schedule, and I think that's a great thing for USC. I think he's a guy that is criminally under talked about when you're talking about some of the potentially better quarterbacks in the country.
Yeah, I might take you a step further. I might say that he's giving you a quarterback edge in every game. I think Dylan Raiola is really good. I'll say definitely 11 of these games, which I'm sure people will disagree with that. Aiden Childs is really good. You are actually playing some of the better. You are actually playing a lot of the better quarterbacks in the Big Ten on this schedule. But like you said, if you got a quarterback edge, that means you got a chance, right? No matter what. In your skill positions, your running back room specifically, you lose Quinn Joyner at Texas Tech, who unfortunately went down with an injury. Hope that he recovers from that. Woody Marks was a guy that you got in the portal. He ended up being really good. Plays for the Texans now. Now you're looking at Wayman Jordan, number one JUCO player coming out. He's a talk of the town right now. All right, I mean he might be really good. Lincoln Riley seems to love him. His coaching staff loves him. They can't talk enough about him. Not to mention you brought in Eli Sanders, who was leading rusher for a New Mexico offense that was pretty dang lethal last year with Devin Dampier, being coached by Bronco Mendenhall. I mean, it was those two guys are pretty exciting. I don't know how much you're going to be relying on those, some of those younger guys that haven't seen a lot of touches, or even those true freshmen, right? But I think those two guys having, they're not the same player, but they're pretty similar in size, and I think that they are both really good, man. I think they're both really good. They give you something different than what you had last year, for sure.
Yeah, and Sanders, his burst, his explosiveness is special for sure. And then I'll throw in a guy like Brian Jackson. Obviously your third string running back isn't the most important player on the roster, but sometimes that matters. And he also gives you another different body at 6 feet, almost 235, 240 pounds, and what he could do in short yardage. I mean, how many times USC fans to nauseam last year and this offseason too, talking about physicality in the Big Ten. Oh, you can't do it. Cold weather, all this stuff, man. And they're sick and tired of hearing that. And I understand that. Brian Jackson, physicality is part of his DNA. It'll be fun to watch him. Yeah, this group, I think, similar to Maeva, is being underrated. Now it's new. There's some question marks because there is that change in scenery, change in level of competition coming from JUCO, coming from New Mexico, and in the Mountain West. But the reality is it's 2025, man. How many times do you see Group of Five, even D2, even JUCO guys come into big time football and be ready to play? And especially at a position like running back too. Also, Eli Sanders has played Big 12 football too. He's no slouch. He's very used to playing, at big stadiums and playing against grown men. So it's a fun group here. One that would be obviously a lot more dangerous if you had a guy like Quentin Joyner in that room just to add another piece to it. But one that's obviously that this staff seems really, really optimistic about, glowingly about one of the better rooms, if not the best room they've had there. I think I heard Lincoln Riley say that, and that's a little surprising for me. I love the confidence. I think that's very exciting. I'm going to be a little bit more wait and see approach there with how these guys adjust. But the good news is you got time to ease it and break them in and come end of September, right? Week 5. I feel like week 5 is going to be awesome, by the way. I don't know what it's actually going to look like, but I feel like we're talking about week 5 a lot in these previews against Illinois, and that could be a big spot for you.
In the Big Ten, Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane are behind those guys, obviously, but is there a wide receiver duo in the Big Ten that is better than those two?
Off the top of my head, how do you feel about Indiana potentially? But no, I think no.
I think these two are mega talented. Mekhi Lemon is a stud. I've said it to you before, CD, but like, wouldn't be surprised if he's one of the leaders in receiving yards in college football. All of college football this year. He separates insanely well, contested catch guy, just absolutely does everything you want from a wide receiver. And then Jacoby Lane, at his size and athleticism, like you saw him make some freaky catches. 12 touchdowns that he caught last year. He is a stud as well. Beyond that, for me, it's not necessarily as exciting, but when you just have those two guys and they're healthy, like that is plenty. Right? You get a big catch, big play guy coming over from Boise State who averaged over 20 yards a catch the year before. Jay Fair's in that room. You got some Tanook Hines, I believe he's there as well, right? From a where's he's a Texas kid, right? Yeah, I think I got to see him in person. Stud. So I think there's some young guys that could definitely contribute, but I am on the side that if you got two wide receivers as elite as that, how much does your number 3 and number 4 guy really matter? You know?
Yeah, definitely. Especially if you got some talented tight ends, especially if you might be running potentially 2 running back offenses. It's interesting. I think the reality is, and I think yes, you might have a question at that third wide receiver spot, something that we'll be interested to be watching in September and see what that rotation looks like. And that target share turns out to be, I don't think it's because you have a lack of options. I think it's because there's a number of quality options that you can do. No, it's not what you had last year with Deuce Robinson and Zachariah Branch and just the pure talent in that room. But in terms of production, I'm not gonna think I see a big time drop off here. And they went out and added guys, but they didn't add like they didn't spend heavy in the portal for these guys. So it's more like, yeah, we love Lemon, we love Lane. Let's get healthy and yeah, let's run it back with these two.
Yeah, I mean, even with the loss of Branch, Robinson, Hudson, I mean, those guys all may be significant contributors, at their respective spots where they're at. But I think this coaching staff has been very clear that Lane and Mekhi Lemon are the two guys that were their favorites. That, hey, we have to keep these two guys, if anyone, on this roster. And your tight end room, Lake McCree, I mean, he was pretty solid there early in the season, as a pass catcher. I think he did a lot of things well for you, down the stretch, but he's good. He's good, man. I'll give it to him. Not one of the elite tight ends. I wouldn't classify him as an elite tight end, and I wouldn't classify this room as an elite tight end room, but you got a lot of young guys after Lake McCree that look, they'll get their chances. Probably they'll get their chances and opportunities. Will be interesting to see who in those groups are the guys that are going to be emerging. I'm assuming it's probably going to be Walker Lyons, but I don't know. I mean, Lincoln Riley's used tight ends in his offenses before.
Yeah, and you got a new tight end coach there, right? Chad Savage coming over to be part of your tight ends coach. Yeah, I would assume Walker Lyons. That's who I would like to see. I think in an ideal world, fans probably too. He got more put on his plate in November than he was obviously in October and September. No dirt, right? He's a true freshman. He was playing a good amount of snaps in that. I would love to see them kind of continue to build on that. So that would be fun too. And then you also got Joey Olsen, Walter Matthews, a couple other guys that, might be a little bit bigger. Walter Matthews, bigger dude, right? 6'6", 285 pounds, right? I mean, just incredibly, awesome there. So something that I think Lincoln Riley can get creative with, like you said, it's not something that's going to blow you away necessarily. But one, I don't see as a weakness or a downfall to this team not living up to the potential offensively.
Yeah, I mean, although, what's the deal with this offensive line, CD? I've been trying to piece it together. I mean, Elijah Page, obviously, Alani Noah, right, are going to be obviously two for sure starters. You hear talks about, Tobias Raymond sliding down to guard. Tawanu playing right tackle then, but there's a lot of uncertainty here. And you had a pretty good room last year. You lose your offensive line coach, Josh Henson, who was pretty solid for you. He goes over to Purdue to take a bit of a promotion. But yeah, Pregnon goes to Oregon. You lose Monheim to the NFL. At your center last year, Mason Murphy transfers to Auburn, who's all right. He's okay. Wasn't anything spectacular, but he was your right tackle last year, so you got to replace that. So that's 3 of your guys that you got to replace. And your offensive line coach, who you did promote, Zach Hinson, who is getting a lot of buzz, a lot of coaching circle talk for sure for him. Young guy. He's only 37. I think the team likes him a lot. We'll see how that plays out. But this is definitely a huge question mark for me. And it's, I guess, a good thing that Jaden Mayava is a little bit more athletic than people give him credit for.
Yeah. So Hansen was a guy, and you USC fans probably know this. He was on your staff past couple of years working with the tight ends. Before that, he was the offensive line coach at Tulsa, coached first-round pick Tyler Smith, right? A guy that's a pretty darn good player. And the Cowboys looking to develop
Dylan Wade as well. I'm pretty sure he coached.
Yeah, transfer guy. Looking to develop Elijah Page and others into his next NFL offensive linemen. It's going to be interesting. And we talked about it too with Penn State, and just the idea is to recruit tackle bodies, guys who are athletic enough and big enough and long enough to play tackle. And then if you run out of positions, right, left and right tackle, shoot those guys into guard and see what happens there. And 9 times out of 10, it's a lot better guard than you are tackle anyways. So, you're getting better play style there from some of these guys. So what we're thinking the offensive line is going to be, according to what, some of the coaches have been saying, following along with, some fall practice notes, you got Elijah Page at left tackle, obviously the returner there. Stud himself, Alani Noah, going to be the right guard, a guy that's one of your returners as well. And then at right tackle, left guard, you're going to see Tobias Raymond at right tackle, redshirt sophomore. You'll see second year redshirt freshman Justin Tawanu at left guard. And then it sounds like there's still an ongoing competition with Jondre Reed and Killian O'Connell at that center position. Listen, I love the idea of kicking down your tackles into guard, guys who've played for you, guys who played well at times. Tobias Raymond, right? Or guys that have played specifically, in the spots that they're going to be starting at. It's interesting. I do worry about the potential upside of this room. I hate to say it, and it's not the end all be all, but you were talking about off air. The recruiting rankings aren't elite. Like Henson, a guy who's pretty well thought of going over to Purdue, didn't recruit, your massive 4 and 5-star guys that we were expecting Lincoln Riley to be, building at USC. It could be something that could be could be a potential downfall of this team, right? I mean, you have to have offensive line when you're traveling across the country to Illinois, to Notre Dame, to Nebraska, Oregon, right? You need to have those guys show up and follow you and play well in those games. The good news, again, I'll say it again, is you have a little bit of a run-up, right? Missouri State, Georgia Southern, Purdue, teams you can deal with. If your offensive line's a real problem, the under is going to hit here. I would not feel pretty good about saying that. I think it's going to be okay. I think they will stitch enough. You talked about the mobility of Maeva and the importance of that, and also the ability of Lincoln Riley to scheme things up when he doesn't have an elite offensive line. That's important too. So, yeah, that's what we're thinking that's going to shake out as in terms of who's going to be starting from left to right in week 1. Obviously, subject to change, but oh man, how are you? How nervous are you about this room?
I'm pretty nervous, and normally I wouldn't be nervous because you're like, oh, they didn't really invest in the portal on the offensive line, but then you do kind of look and you're like, wait, they really liked DJ Wingfield from Purdue, and his waiver for eligibility got denied. So maybe that's a big loss. Then if that's a guy that they were anticipating coming in, and I'm assuming he would have probably played guard, because that's what he did at Purdue, I guess. So just another piece, right? But yeah, like you talked about, I mean, you worry about you were worried about the ceiling. I'm worried about the floor. Like what happens to like some injuries? Like I get that there's some competition at some spots, so you maybe feel decent about like 6 or 7 guys, but beyond that, like if Elijah Page goes down, what are you doing about left
Mm-hmm.
tackle? What are you doing? I don't know what you're doing. So USC, and I said a very similar thing about Indiana, where I'm like, there's some guys that I like here on this offensive line. You just better hope you stay healthy in the right spots. And, lo and behold, Indiana stays healthy in the offensive line. They make a run. So staying healthy is just a giant part of this, right? In building that chemistry. But like you said, it's nice that you get a couple tune-up games before you get into the Michigan States and the Illinois. Sorry, Purdue, you are a tune-up game until proven otherwise. But Barry Odom, it might not always be that way. So just this year. But yeah, it's definitely a concern because you love the skill positions. And it's like if you're not able to give these running backs the space you need or Jane Mayava the time that he needs, yeah, it would be a little bit brutal there. But so that might be a downgrade, that position group. But on the defensive side of the ball, CD, Dan Lynn, all right, last year, massive improvement. I mean, they had like over 140 missed tackles last year. Or not last year, in 2023. And they were under 100, which for 13 games played in a season, that's like pretty solid. That's like, I'd say average, all right, for like a team throughout the course of a season. So going from one of the worst tackling teams in the entire country to an average team tackling, I mean, boy, you love to see that kind of thing. So, and you know that Dan Lynn prioritizes physicality. His front sevens at UCLA those last couple years were kind of the calling card of his defenses. And to be honest, I mean, I like some of the players here in this front seven. CD, I mean, this defensive line, I think you got a lot of versatile pieces here. You got some guys that, have played significant snaps, guys that have done well here. And then also, sure, you lose a couple guys in the portal into eligibility, but not necessarily giant key pieces across the board. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's a group that I think 24 months ago I was very nervous about the future of this room potentially. But I don't hate it at all. I actually like what they did, supplementing in the portal here, not going crazy in the portal, but Keyshawn Silver's a fun name, fun body type, 6'4", 330. Again, gives you that physicality that everyone says USC needs to get for the Big Ten, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, he's obviously a veteran guy that's played a lot of high-level college football or played college football, or yeah, a lot of high-level college football. Cameron Fountain's, a budding star on the edge there. Anthony Lucas has been around the block, feels like since forever. Part of that massive recruiting class that Texas A&M had a couple years ago.
He was awesome last year before he got hurt. Remember, he only played in a couple games last year, and then he was done for the season. But he was spectacular in those starts that he had, and I see him playing a huge role here. Right, I think he from that 2022 class is one of those guys that A&M is really regretting not having on their roster for 2025.
Yeah, and also I love the size of this room too. Like Silver and Lucas, Devon Tompkins, right? Kobe Pepe's a huge dude. How about the true freshman Jakeem Stewart, a guy who's been flashing too? It sounds like they're willing to have him play and they're ready for him to play. And how much he can handle, I think, is what they're going to put on his plate. Jamal Jarrett as well, Chidi Abazari from Minnesota. Is a really athletic dude. Carlin Jones, Floyd Picard. I mean, the list goes on. Braylon Shelby, I don't even know if I talked about him coming back and a lot of experience there. Yeah, I really like it, especially if you got a step from Cameron Fountain and the physicality boost from Silver and Pepe inside, plus with the athleticism that you get from a couple of your young guys. It's awesome. And too, like, last year you rotated a ton, which was great. You kept first of all, you got a lot of guys experience and you kept guys, fresh all throughout. And I think that's going to be something that you're going to have the opportunity to do again this year, especially with your a lot of your tough games come in the back half of the year when you do have tired legs in October, November. But hopefully USC, you have those fresh legs on that defensive line.
Definitely in the linebacking core. I mean, Eric Gentry going down last year was a big deal. Another one of those big injuries on the defensive side of the ball. Yeah, he's insane. All right, he's like really good at football. I get that you're losing Mascarenas Arnold, and Mason Cobb did a good job. I give him a hard time in 2023. Mason Cobb. I think he was a better version of himself, the version that they were hoping to get when they got him from Oklahoma State a couple years ago. But Eric Gentry headlines this room, and a couple other athletic pieces are also part of that. But if Eric Gentry is healthy and he is playing at the level that he can play at, which is one of the better linebackers in the entire country that people really aren't talking about. When he's healthy, he's one of the best linebackers in the country. I mean, just having him healthy is just going to make this room so much better.
This is, I think, one of the better duos, in terms of your inside linebackers in the Big Ten, assuming you get a healthy Eric Gentry, right? I will say, like, I don't think that's something we should just take for granted, that he just shows up ready to be who he is. I hope he is, because he's, like you said, he's exciting, fun player. Him and the growth of Stevens and what Stevens can do to allow Gentry to be himself and his athletic self, and to go out and do that it's going to be important. Jaden Walker, young kid, redshirt freshman, right? Guy that seems like he's turned the corner, hoping to be a key backup there for you. Tamari Robinson coming in from Penn State. He's battled injuries since he's got here, but he's also another guy, Elijah Newby, change positions. So there's, Anthony Beavers, athletic dude, former safety. You need to stay healthy in this group, though. I do think there's a significant downgrade from Gentry and Stevens into whoever else is in there, right? Whatever that may be. But in terms of what you got, man, I mean, yeah, I will take this group 10 times out of 10, especially if you tell me you get a healthy Eric Gentry. It could be a fun one, especially playing behind that defensive line and those gap pluggers that you got up there with some of the size and mismatches they can create in this 3-4 scheme that Lynn likes to have is, and let those guys run and be athletic. So heck yeah to Lynn, heck yeah to this linebacking staff and these players. It could be a fun group to watch.
And then the secondary, you lose a lot of pieces. Jalen Smith is the big one, right? I mean, he was phenomenal for you, right? He was pretty locked down, all right, when he needed to be on his side of the field. I guess he didn't play in the bowl game. He ended up getting drafted pretty high. Yeah, 3rd round pick. I mean, that's up there, man. That means you were one of the best defensive backs in the entire country, or draft eligible defensive backs in the country last year. One of the better defensive backs in the country also last year, Kamari Ramsey. He was a monster at UCLA. We talked about him last year being one of the most impactful transfers. You saw it immediately in the LSU game. Like, the physicality that he brought to that secondary in that first game was indicative of the culture change that's shifting on this defensive side of the football in the Deanne Lynn era. Now, because he lost a lot of guys to the portal, eligibility was a big reason they lost a lot of these guys, right? Graduation, a lot of 5th years, but you do get some transfer portal pieces, and I don't hate these guys. I like DJ Harvey, Bishop Fitzgerald, get Brian Urlacher's kid, coming in, eventually play some nickel or, what other position that he's going to be playing, some safety, whatever it is that they're going to use him for. I think it's talented, right? So cohesiveness is going to be something that's a question mark. Is this going to be a group that probably gets better as the season goes on? I would guess so. Is your week 1 starters probably going to be your week 14 starters? I would probably also lean no on that side. But, Sadie, what are you expecting from this secondary group in 2025?
Yeah, it's really fun. And the way that they rotate and are versatile with especially those safeties, Ramsey and Bishop Fitzgerald, that I expect to be the starters. Fitzgerald coming in from NC State, right? Like that's going to open up some opportunities for some of your other safeties, like you said, Kennedy Urlacher. You also have Alex Graham, the true freshman that they're kind of throwing out there at nickel and corner as well. It sucks that Prophet Brown is injured at your nickel. Sounds like he'll be gone for the first, half of your season, which includes some tough games for sure, games that you would love to win, set you up for a much easier October and November. But hopefully get him back. Jason Johnson, sounds like his injury, isn't going to be super serious, but could definitely hurt him in impactful reps, the transfer from UCF. DeCarlos Nicholson, man, I mean, you talk about resilience. That guy has been through it. Former quarterback, changing into a cornerback when he was in JUCO. Kind of been around, almost in the portal, comes back. I mean, sounds like he's putting it together, man. Isn't that awesome? That's what college football is all about. And that's why you don't write off players, right? So you got DeCarlos Nicholson back there. Braylon Conley is probably my bet to start opposite him. And what he can do, it sounds like he's, putting it together in this camp here. And then, I mentioned Alex Graham. That's going to be one I'm going to be watching very closely as a guy that they trust him, man. Not only are they playing him at nickel, but I bet they'll move him around, and his IQ as a young true freshman in not a super easy scheme, and a scheme that puts pressure on the defensive backs with Dan Lynn. That's awesome. This kid was in here back in January, early, so he's been around the block. It's not like he's being thrown into the fire just yet, but that's fun. I like it. Now they attacked it in the portal, and they feel pretty good about it, which is great, which is really great.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably 8 or 9 guys in that whole secondary that you're like, okay, yeah, I can see that person playing meaningful Big Ten football, so the versatility of that room combined with the front seven that's hopeful to improve with some superstars up there, and Eric Gentry, and I mean, I'm thinking Anthony Lucas takes a big step, man. I think that he's going to be a guy that's a stud for them. But yeah, and then special teams, hoping you get better at kicker. All right, Chinden. Couldn't tell you if he's going to be better. I'm not a kicking specialist, but it has to be better, right? It has to be better. And then punter, you're staying the same. Wait, no, you just got to transfer. Either way, your special teams is going to be fine, right? Not going to be a massive shift in. Well, hopefully it's in the kicking game. You're going to get better, right? Which in the margins of some of these Big Ten games, that's going to matter a lot, especially when it's colder in November. I mean, CD, as the Minnesota fan, you were the victim of a couple of field goals last year, really mattering in key situations. Any year before that, so it matters. But it also matters for your 7.5 win total, which if you're going to take the over, you're gobbling up minus 175 juice, which is a lot. But I look at the schedule, and like we talked about earlier, like how many quarterbacks are you really seeing on the schedule that you're like, well, they're better than Jaden Malva? It's not that many. I look at Missouri State, Georgia Southern, Purdue, and Northwestern, and I'm like, all right, those are wins. That's 4. Can you find 4 more wins in the rest of that Big Ten schedule? And I think maybe Michigan State at home, maybe UCLA. Maybe you find 2 more amongst Michigan at home, Illinois, Nebraska, Iowa. I think it'll be tough to beat Oregon on the road. I think you could, if things don't go together on their offensive line, the way that they wanted to, and say that Dante Moore's not the guy that they want him to be. Who knows? Notre Dame, they got a new quarterback coming in. I don't know. At that much juice, no way am I betting it, but because we got to pick something, right? I'll lean over on the USC win total.
Yeah, I'll be with you there as well. I'm not, like you said, not going to be considering playing it. I will say, you talked about special teams and kicking, like hopefully that gets better in 1-score games you're going to be playing. Last year, it was not great. You were not good at winning 1-score games. Quick math here. you lost how many games last year, right? You went, was it 6-6? 6-6 for USC. You lost 5 of those games were one-score games. That is unacceptable. I expect them to be better at the margins, right? Better in close games. That's why I'm expecting a couple win jump here from last year. Maeva more comfortable in the system. His defense getting off the field on third down, making plays, turnovers. The one thing that might make me eat my tongue is if you do have some injuries on the O-line and if you do have some injuries at the top of your receiver room. And then even obviously Maeva, but that's not something you can really account for, right? If you lose your quarterback, be hard pressed if any team, hits their over on their win total. That's just how important that position is and how good Maeva is, how we think he's going to take the jump. I'll go over 7.5 here with the schedule. I will say, I want to ask you, what's the upside on this USC team? If you are, not the most, I'm not going to say delusional. If you're an optimistic USC fan, right? What are you looking for here? Like, what's something that you can realistically say, hey, can we compete for a playoff spot? Can we go 10-2? Can we be in the thick of the Big Ten race in November? I mean, damn it, we should be. It's year 4 of Lincoln Riley. What say you?
Yeah, I think as someone who's trying to evaluate the roster, I think you could hang your hat on 9 wins and roll in that 2026 class and any sort of momentum that you have and just start building. I think USC fans definitely wish they were in a different situation than they are right now with Lincoln Riley. And maybe you feel like you wasted, 2 years of Caleb Williams, but I say wasted. I mean, there's still, that second year Caleb Williams was pretty brutal, right? But I could see a world in which you win 10 games on the schedule. And that is requiring Jaden Mayava to be better than we even think he is. That's probably requiring Oregon for some stuff to kind of fall off the rails for them. But also a rivalry game, you never know. It's probably requiring for CJ Carr to not be the guy that people are hoping that he is. And then you also not slipping up on the road against Illinois, who's going to be a really good team and probably will be favored in that game against you, actually. So there's a world out there where 10 wins is possible, but I'm just not likely seeing that on the radar. I'm seeing 8-4. That's my brain's calculating 8-4, as the most likely outcome for this. But I think 9-3 would be a great season. You're like, holy cow, we got a great young quarterback to take the reins in next year. We got a ton of talent coming in, and then maybe Lincoln Riley can use the transfer portal. He did use the transfer portal a little bit, but not as much as he has done in years past, which is crazy because he still brought in double-digit transfers. But I don't know. 9 wins would be exceptional. 10 wins, I think, would be the ceiling. I think most likely is 8-4. What about you?
Yeah, I think we're in the same line there. More often than not, they're going 8-4. They're definitely going 9-3. I think they're going 9-3, 10-2 more likely than it would be 6-6. In terms of the pot, assuming no injury.
I don't know.
At quarterback.
Injuries? Well, yeah, assuming no injuries, yeah. I think there's more likely for injuries to happen at multiple positions, I think, of importance.
Yeah.
The wheels could fall off the wagon if some injuries don't go their way. And they didn't on the defensive side last year, remember? They were still a pretty decent defense last year. I say decent. They were top 50 in most metrics, which for USC, the last couple of years, fans are like, yes, yes.
Oh, man.